We want Florida. Just file that one along with the list of it was 4-1, 1967, and all the classics, because in this series, the Toronto Maple Leafs got exactly what they deserved. There's a lot to make out of what happened in Game 5. There's the controversial no goal on Morgan Rielly, and then there was a 3-on-2 OT goal, where a net drive caused by Radko Gudas would lead to a Nick Cousins series clincher. Of course, people quickly pointed out that Gudas held Yarncroke's stick, and that alone allowed Cousins to get the shot off and end the game. To just add on to the misery, Gudas screams right in rookie goalie Joseph Woll's face, and it's just a bitter, bitter pill to swallow for the Leafs and their fans. Now, I get it, it's habit. Leaf fans were quick to blame officiating in this game, and while it might have not have been great, the truth is that the Leafs did get exactly what they deserved. In the end, there's one stat that tells the story of why the Leafs are hitting the golf course early. Their season ends with 7 consecutive games in which they only scored 2 goals. That's the driest offensive stretch for the team in 13 years. The Leafs pay 4 forwards close to $40 million a year. That is almost half the salary cap to be game changers, and when your best players aren't producing or showing up in any series, this is the type of outcome that's expected. As Sheldon Keefe said afterwards, the Leafs lost this series in the first 3 games. How? Well, the Panthers ate them alive on the forecheck, and they forced Toronto's best players to play in their own end and make mistakes. Combine that with Bobrovsky shutting the door and the Leafs' best players going quiet, you get a second-round elimination. What became clear for the Toronto Maple Leafs was their inability to adjust to the Panthers and even the Tampa Bay Lightning's forecheck in this playoff run. The Leafs had flashes where they looked like they had an answer for it by beating Florida's forecheck with stretch passes. On Nylander's goal, they suck in the first forechecker with a D-to-D pass, while having a forward swing down low to build speed and keep Florida's F2 guessing. Toronto would then send a forward high in the neutral zone to stretch out the Panthers, and a quick bump to the middle gives their talented players a controlled entry, and of course it results in a goal. There was simply not enough of this for Toronto in this series, and that's a major credit to the Florida Panthers. Toronto seemed committed in the first 3 games on beating Florida with short passes in their own zone, and they got burned. The adjustment for the Leafs did end up happening, as we saw in Games 4 and flashes of Games 5, but it was too little, too late. Now comes all the tough decisions and questions for this Maple Leaf team. What's the future hold for Kyle Dubas? I thought he made all the right moves heading into these playoffs, but yet again, his top guys let him down. Or how about Sheldon Keefe, who has 4 seasons now as the head coach and not a lot to show for it other than a ton of regular season success? Then, of course, what happens to the core 4? I can't see them running it back with the same 4 guys, and if they do, I think it would be a mistake mentally for this team. Change for the sake of change is usually not the right decision, but in this situation, I think the Leafs need to try a different mix of players. For me, I think we've seen a large enough sample size to determine that the playoffs and the pressure eats away at Mitch Marner's game. For such a dynamic and talented player, his game shrinks when they need him the most. The same could be said for Matthews and Tavares, who in this series combined for a grand total of 0 goals. As for Nylander and Rielly, they were both players who I thought embraced the pressure and elevated their game in key moments. Coincidentally, they both scored in Game 5 as well. Moving forward for this organization, they must factor that into their decision of who to keep. Who exactly thrived under pressure over the years, and who hasn't? Panthers coach Paul Maurice even said after the series that the pressure in Toronto starts way back in training camp, not at the beginning of a playoff series. As a former Leaf coach, he knows the toll that pressure takes on players if they aren't ready to handle it. Despite none of the players wanting any change, there has to be some sort of adjustment, as this team will likely look very different with all the expiring contracts heading into the summer. So, what are your thoughts on the Leafs? Comment below what you think they should change moving forward. And congrats to the Panthers, who have been absolute dogs in these playoffs. I'll probably do a playoff preview between them and Carolina. So if you want to see more NHL playoff breakdowns, make sure you click that subscribe button.